Hey, welcome back everybody. Welcome back to my channel, AmusedJester, and my name is Junior. And today we're going to be looking at Mattel's brand new The Flash 6.5-inch line. I am so excited to open this up. This is meant for kids, and it is priced for kids. This is $12.99 that I got from Amazon. There's the packaging, and there's the packaging. I'm actually very glad I'm not a package guy because this is going to get torn up easily. However, if you're looking for that collectible part, I guess if you get this in a really good condition and keep it that way, you might have some money because this will get destroyed easily out there. So it'll be rare to find this in a good condition many years down the line. But let's go ahead and open it up and we'll take a look and see what's going on with the toy. Because this is the first toy of the first toy line, we'll go ahead and see what we got with the unboxing. So here's the packaging. So you get package art here. This is on a separate plastic tray, separately glued. And this is basically the accessories pack. Ooh, this is really tight in there. And by the way, this cardboard is thick cardboard. It's not like the old Mattel Origins or Cartoon Collection cardboard. This is really thick grade. All right, so I've gone ahead and removed it out of packaging. You have the accessory here that you can connect to that clip on, and you can basically clip it onto his forearm. You have this trailing lightning thing, and then another one lightning thing. So they're kind of different from each other. This one I thought would be some sort of like weapon that he can hold. Okay. And then these two basically will clip on to either his hands or his ankles. Kind of like a speedrunning thing. Now let's take a look at the figure itself. First, we're going to take a look at the head, as I always do. And that looks awesome. That head just looks awesome. And you'll notice that the paint application is actually printed. I'm looking at it really, really closely. That's why you get to see all those unflattering dots. But in hand, obviously, you won't be looking at the figure this close. In hand, all those dots will disappear. But I do want to point out that, as you can see, it even has the eyebrows, some paint on the eye lining, two shades in the eyeballs, and look at the lips, two shades of lips, lip color, one for the top and one at the bottom. In fact, I do believe this whole head is printed in red plastic, which basically means the flesh tone itself is painted around the eyes. So this whole thing is completely painted up. Now, this type of setup is very similar to what Marvel Legends does, wherein with McFarlane, these symbols are usually raised, while Marvel Legends will have just a basic buck body and have everything else painted. However, that stops with the boots, because the boots are sculpted uniquely to this figure, while Marvel Legends will basically or usually have this just painted on. Okay. Now let's take a look at the articulation for this person, for this thing. It can look up pretty well. Slight going down. You can go side to side if you want to. Side to side completely. The rotation of the elbow or the shoulder goes all around. You can do a T-pose with this. Not a problem. It does not have a bicep cut, but you can mimic that rotation on the bicep cut by the elbow, because the elbow can rotate. The elbow isn't a single joint, but it goes well at 90, even slightly more so. The wrist rotation, you can do that, but it also goes in and out pretty well. The ab crunch does not exist. There is a waist articulation, but it's a horizontal waist rotation. So if you really twist it that far off, you are going to break the sculpt with a hard edge cut. I do also want to point out that it seems like the arms or the limbs are separate or different plastic used than the main torso, because the main torso has some sort of translucency quality that's not in the limbs. They're more solid. And of course, the joint seems to be made of different materials as well. So you will see a difference in paint shade between the limb and the joint, which you also notice between the body and the limbs. As for the hip joint, hip thigh connection, it's just on a barbell joint, so you can go forward pretty well. Sideways, I think you can go slightly above 45 degrees. Back is not a lot, maybe like 15 degrees. You can push it a little bit more, but as you do, it's going to start going off to the side. So it's going to look weird, but you can get it high if you want to. As you notice, it actually has a thigh cut. That's kind of amazing. Another amazing thing too, because remember, this is only a toy line meant for kids. It has a price point meant for kids. It's $12.99, and yet it's double jointed at the knees. Also notice there are no pinholes for the joints. They're completely pinless. There's nothing on the boots and there's nothing on the ankles. Okay. Now, like I said, this is $12.99 for this line right now. And the last time I actually paid $12.99 on retail for a toy figure is for DC Universe Classics. In fact, if I remember correctly, DC Universe Classics started off with $9.99, and then it went up to $12.99, and I think the highest it went to was $14.99, but I'm not entirely sure. But there it is with DC Universe Classics. As you can see, if we are going to compare this figure, we're going to see this is set for millimeters. Width of the shoulder is 55.2 on the DC Universe Classics, which is slightly bigger than the new core line, which is 53.1. That's pretty good. The head on the core line is slightly bigger scaled than the DC Universe Classics, which gives this figure a more natural look in terms of proportion for the whole body. If you look at the DC Universe Classics, it's very heroic, where it has massive shoulders compared to the head and massive chest compared to the head. But then again, you do notice that his arms or hands are bigger than the head, and then also the feet are big. But in conjunction as a whole, it gives it that whole super heroic proportions. This new line still has that in a much less noticeable way. I feel this has better proportions as a whole than DC Universe Classics. Remember, this was meant for the kids. But before, with the DC Universe Classics, during those times, there were never distinctions between a toy meant for kids and a toy meant for collectors. There was nothing like that. Even McFarlane, when he was starting off during that time, you don't really think of his stuff as toys. They're more like statues with articulation. So those were meant for collectors, and he marketed them for collectors. And then he was trying to dip into the action figure line. Even the subject matter that he had, they weren't really meant for kids. You had Spawn, you had the clown, you had these monsters. They weren't really meant for kids. They're meant for collectors. Um, but the general toy industry did not differentiate between a toy meant for kids and a toy meant for collectors as we are doing now. So this is just a toy. That's all it was. A toy for kids. And just as this is a toy for kids. Just keep that in mind. And the price point, 20 years later, $12.99 and $12.99. Okay. Why don't we compare the articulation points between these two in terms of number? You have one for the neck and the head, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18. You know what? Let's backtrack that. That should be only 16 because that's a barbell joint. 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22. That's 22 points of articulation for this new collector line that is meant for kids. And it's priced at $12.99. All right. Now, even though the DC Universe Classics, the industry, the toy industry considered it for kids, we looked at this as perfect for collectors, right? So we knew that there was a difference between us collectors. We knew that there's a difference between what fits in our collection and what fits in toys. This, even though the toy industry meant this for kids, this was perfect for us as collectors. So let's look at the number of articulation. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, and 23. Did I count that right? So 23 points of articulation. Because there's nothing on the boot cut as well. Well, this is 22. So I would say that's a fair, good comparison, equal in terms of the number of articulation between the two. And we're thinking of something that's 20-year difference. And this is supposed to be clearly marketed for kids, because that means the collector line has to have more points of articulation than this one, because we know it's going to be a lot more than $12.99. That's what's really scaring me right now with DC Mattel collection. So 22 points of articulation, 23 points of articulation, $12.99, $12.99. General action figure meant for the general public that us as collectors saw it as a collectible figure. While this is certainly meant for kids, and some collectors out there despise it for the fact that they think it's a limited amount of articulation and it's ugly because it's meant for kids. For me, it doesn't matter. They're the same figure. And it excites me because if you look at some of the toy lines out there, like Spin Master, the toys they meant for kids that are in the same price point as this one have less amount of articulation, and they would be exhibiting the same amount of features as this one, where it would have enlarged hands, enlarged feet, smaller faces, and enlarged body to have that super heroic stance. And it will probably have like 8 to 12 points of articulation, and it will still be at the same price point, even though it's the same price, same height. Now, I brought up, as you can see, this is very similar in design, where it's just painted on and nothing really pops out. This one's a different scale as well. I think what this really is in competition is currently, because this is obviously an old thing, is Marvel Legends. Look at that. Look at how much they scale well. Now, I've seen video comparisons of this one now to the Batman figure from the core line, which I'm still waiting on. And Batman stands a little bit higher or taller than Flash, which means he should scale well with Captain America. Even these two, they scale well with each other. Let's compare between these two the paint application. So there's the paint application for Cap, which I think it still is using not the paint printing technology, but it's just straight paint compared to this one. Right? Doesn't even have any paint application on the lips, just the eyes. And maybe the eyebrows, I'm not sure. But this is, how much was this? $22, $24 when it first came out. This is $12.93. This is pin joints, pinless. So obviously this has more levels of articulation, but you're basically paying twice as much between the two. And now let's see if we can bring out a regular Marvel Legends. All right, so just to be fair, here is one or the more updated Marvel Legends, more recent ones. So yes, between the two, you can see that this has a lot of paint application in the face. And if you look at all my reviews with the Marvel Legends, which is very scarce because I don't really review Marvel Legends anymore because they are basically the same all throughout. And the main thing I've always said is with Marvel Legends, when what they've done is they concentrated the entire budget for paint in the face, and everything else is basic paint application. Look at this. That's awful. But I think that works because in the end, what really draws your eyes are the face. It goes towards the face every time. You make that face work, everything else just follows. Everything else is just blurry outliers. You know, you basically see the whole figure and say, well, that's good enough. But then you look at that face and you're like, wow, that face looks awesome. They did the same thing. Mattel did the same thing in a much less impressive way because you do see the difference between these two in terms of paint application, right? But at the same time, this is $25 and this is $12.99 or $13. It does not have double joints on the elbows, but it still accomplishes pretty well for what it is, for $12.93. Let's see if we can bring in a Joe figure because we know that Joe's scale pretty good with Marvel Legends. So here's the Flash with Duke. That scales pretty good to me. Proportion wise, a little bit more superheroic here. Right? I wonder if the hands, I don't think the hands are removable, and I won't even try because I don't want to break my new toy. So I think in terms of value, let me show you this one really quick. So that's it for that. And like I said, I think you can hold these two. And this one, I really don't, I think this is too awkward, but I can see, yeah, sure, why not, you know, if you want to. Just extra stuff. So the accessories are nice. It's nice, you know, it's a nice aside. But this is where the main value is. And for $12.99, I'm telling you, this is an amazing, amazing value. I initially bought this just for shits and giggles and just to see what it's like. But honestly, this can stand side by side with any of my DC Universe classics. It can stand side by side with my Marvel Legends, finally. And I didn't realize, I'd forgotten that DC Universe classics can stand by with Marvel Legends in terms of height. The only difference between the two is that the version of DC Universe Classic, It was too old, antiquated, the design. But this, look at that. That's just amazing. And now he can also stand side by side with my Marvel Legends. That is an amazing idea. Now, I'm going to say the value for this particular line is very, very high. I'm going to give it a 15. It's a must. I'd almost say higher than 15, but let's be reasonable. It is supposed to be for toys or for kids. But the price being $13 and the amount of stuff that you're getting, the playability factor in this one, even removing this, even if this had been $12.99 without those accessories, because the Flash accessories aren't really that big. I admit, for the Joker, I've seen the reviews and I'm really excited for that. But for the Flash, you can get rid of all that, and the value for the $12.99 would still stand. It's that well done. Does this require any stand? Actually, it's got pegs in there. So let's test and see how they will work with my stands. Now, my stands are meant to be put on figures with ankles, which this doesn't have, but it fits perfectly with my bases. And look at that. And the way I designed my bases, it's perfect. You don't really need it because of the wide feet and everything. But oh boy, did I do a good job with these bases or what? Look at that. Complete steadiness on it. Yeah, I can't wait. So here's the thing. This actually makes me hesitate for the collector version, because I already know it's going to be at least $25 and up. And that's based off of my review of the Chronicles, Masters of the Universe Chronicles, which I am not continuing to purchase. I'm actually more interested in continuing to purchase their Masters of the Universe core line, which was meant for kids, as this are meant for kids, because I feel like the value there is higher for what you're getting, while the Chronicles was very lackluster. It was showing a lot of loose joints. There weren't enough paint applications to make it stand out. Definitely does not make it stand out more than this. It's not like the paint application on the faces were of this level. This level of paint application is very crisp, and it really draws your eyes to the face. It doesn't do that for me with the Masters of the Universe Chronicles. And those are meant to compete with Marvel Legends. Yes, they were pinless, just as slick this one is. But I just feel like they're not going to do it. Plus, they're actually of a weird scale. Masters of the Universe Chronicles are at 6.9 inches. They're actually taller than the core line of DC Universe. All right, I brought it out, and look, this is supposed to be a 6-inch line. This Masters of the Universe. Look at how much more taller it is. That is way too tall. So that really concerns me, what they're gonna do with DC Universe, their collector line. How much more can they improve on this to make it so that it's collectible? I'm sure they're gonna do this type of articulation and more on the joints and ankles, but this face paint does not inspire me. Look at how much more Marvel Legends pop compared to that. And this is a toy based on a comic book, but look at those eyes, and then compare the eyes on this He-Man. And they're basically the same price point. And that really scares me on what to expect on the DC Universe collector line. But honestly, if I do get disappointed with the collector line for DC, I'm glad that they made this core 6.5 line this way, because this is very, very exciting and it's cheap. It's $13. This is something that a lot of McFarlane supporters are really, really missing out on. And they probably will, because they're like diehard fans of McFarlane. They're just like completely not do anything on Mattel. That's fine for me. That's their choice, but I feel like the real value is gonna be in this one. I don't know how much more of an improvement they can do on this figure that would rate a $27 increase, or double the increase, right? It's $12.99 times 2 is going to be 26, which I think is what the premium collection is going to be. What can you add to this one that is that mind-blowing, you know? So we'll have to wait and see. It's not coming out until 2027. Until then, I'm going to be grabbing as many of these as I can. And I did buy pre-order wave 2 already, except for the black suit Superman Batman, which I think I will get. I don't think I'll be doing the vehicles for this one. I'm not feeling it for the Batmobile. Maybe for the Robin one, only because Robin is in a different costume. They are playing their old tricks again, where these 3-packs that I really want, the Mr. Freeze and I believe Green Lantern, will have a third Batman. So there's going to be a lot of Batman in this line, obviously. But I need to have Green Lantern, Mr. Freeze, Man Bat, and all that stuff, whatever else is coming. However, because this is a core kids line, I don't anticipate them going really in depth to the characters of the DC universe. That's the thing. That's going to reside in the collector line. That's another problem. Again, that's not until the future. We'll have to see what's going on. But Mattel just acquired the license, and they're not going to let it go until that whole thing runs out. What, 5 or 10 years? Who knows how long they have it. So that's it for my review of Mattel's new DC Core Premier 6.5 line. Meant for kids, priced for kids, $12.99. I think this is going to be a very, very successful line for them. $12.99 per figure. That's very, very attractive to any parents out there who's on a budget at this point and just wants to give something to their kids that they think they'll play. And the bright colors, they pop right off the shelves. They really do. And I think this will be very, very successful for them. That's it. Thank you for watching. I hope to see you guys in my next review. Bye.